Let the group evoke the Shambhala force and demonstrate the will to good in new and potent livingness. This supports the Tibetan's call for students of his work to counter the destructive effects of the Shambhala force through stimulation of constructive renewal. I think we'd all agree that a lot has changed in the world since we last met, and that the first ray is very much in evidence lately, particularly in political events. And we are therefore consolidating on last year's work on the keynote of subjective synthesis through the demonstration of a fiery will to good. Of course, the Shambhala force has many facets, ranging from being an expulsive and clarifying force as it moves to implement divine purpose, to its role as a force of synthesis, which holds all things within the circle of divine love. So, while its destructive tendencies are often uppermost in our minds, the perspective from the soul's altitude reveals it to be an abstracting force which draws us to wholeness and reality. The soul has a simplicity of purpose and impulse of love, and all that is trivial and materialistic must make way for the spirit to sound its creative note, energizing the inner life and destroying all that obstructs its expression. Through this process, the initiate's life is one of radiant simplicity, with an overriding purpose to fulfill the plan. The Shambhala force is the force of the will, and there are three aspects to its human expression: the will as a conditioner of the life aspect, the will which conquers death, and the will which brings fulfillment. And this latter aspect, the drive towards fulfillment, is initiated by a realized achievement from the very start. It's the divine will to completion which precedes the creative effort. A synthesis of creation, adherence to vision, and complete sacrifice, and all of these in terms of divine experienced experiment. So, looking at the growing polarization of human relations worldwide, perhaps the most significant aspect of the Shambhala force for us to consider is its capacity to establish right human relations. And it's heartening to know that victory is already inherent in the Shambhala force, and that through this whole process runs a thread of fulfilled synthesis. This idea of guaranteed success preceding creative effort may be puzzling. Easier to grasp is the fact that the one life thrills through us as part of the planetary system, and that in the course of evolution we gradually bend our consciousness to accommodate and fulfill its purpose. But if a victory is already assured, why do we need to take on such a heavy burden if the slower route is available? Why put ourselves through this accelerated pace of evolution, a painful forcing process at times that we willingly subject ourselves to in an esoteric school? And the answer is that deep down we have a love for humanity, even if it's a bit unrecognized to begin with, and we set our sights on the goal and pledge to follow it in order to bring suffering to an end. And to delay would really only delay the suffering and testing. And our Logos has chosen this difficult path through a divine wisdom that we cannot understand, but which we inherently respect and commit ourselves to. So on this path of pain and struggle, the divine will can be temporarily derailed, as the failure of the moon chain reminds us. And because of the factor of human free will, it's clear that the experiment in time and space may not work as envisioned, but we can be assured that the goal will be reached eventually, no matter the setbacks. For further divine experimentation would be made by the Logos. The speeding up process on this planet with a decision to artificially stimulate the process of human radiation through the method of initiation. Most planets do not subject themselves to this shortcut to intensive purification. But on the earth, this way was opened up to anyone willing to pass through the divine alchemical fire. And a similar process is occurring in other kingdoms of nature. You may recall the fascinating account in Rays 5 about the impact the war had on the mineral kingdom. It resulted in the mineral monad, or life, emerging as from an initiation. And we can only guess at what this means, but we do know that minerals became radioactive for the first time then. The attainments of the first solar system have equipped nature with an inherent intelligence. What will nature be like when all of its atoms are radioactive and not only demonstrate intelligent activity, but also radiating love? At this stage of our development, the evocation of the Shambhala force may seem like a task too advanced for our capabilities. When we think about it, though, we evoke the will daily in meditation as we connect with Shambhala, and as souls we touch the center where the will of God is known through the use of the great invocation. And last century, a picture of the holy city was given out so that its reality can be formulated in our consciousness. And more about Shambhala is predicted to be given out soon. Peace and goodwill are two powerful energies that originate in Shambhala. For this heavenly city is the true place of complete peace and the transmitter of the fiery will to good. An insight into the nature of this will energy may be glimpsed by a very perceptive comment from a student. She wrote, "Will is the innermost potency or potential in everything." This can be likened to an electric field which is active as soon as there is tension on the grid, even when electricity is not used. The brilliant central point or innermost essence is livingness. Peace really is related to this absolute potent stillness. Magnetic fields appear when electricity is moving, when they are being put to use, and likewise love is activated when the higher will finds direction. So despite the world turmoil, the higher will is finding direction and a new attitude is unfolding. The radiant way of the disciple can be experienced as a joyful process in spite of the outer difficulties. The idea of the will as a divine experienced experiment brings to our daily spiritual practice the trial and error approach. In the inner laboratories of our souls, we can work with the energies and forces and relationships which make up our lives, knowing ultimately we will succeed. The experimental nature of the school may be somewhat hidden by its structured forms of meditation and study, but certain disciplines and formats ensure that deviation from the straight and narrow is avoided. For as we know, the path is a razor-edged one. There are nevertheless open spaces on the way, contemplative stages in meditation, where spiritual creativity and experimentation can flourish. It's also true that the will demands a certain amount of obedience, but it's an obedience that leads to the transformation of the mind by the active, expectant will. And it's this aspect of the will that brings the inner radiance into outer creative expression. As this intensely joyful experience awakens us to the essential livingness of all things, we begin to perceive ourselves as a center of living energy within a greater field of fiery radiance. This radiant livingness finds a fitting symbol in the five-pointed star. It's regarded as a symbol of perfection. Five-pointed star can act as a magnetic gateway to a higher plane of awareness. And when held with purpose and concentration before the mind's eye, a rent in the veils occurs, allowing specific energies to pass through. The star is the symbol of the five centers as well, which control the perfected human being. The two head centers, the heart, the throat, and the base of the spine. These and subsidiary centers that they control slowly become vibrant and radiatory over the course of evolution, until it's said of them, blended they are, and each with each works rhythmically. The vital force flows through them from all planes. The world stands wide open. This flow of force through the centers is intensified during the process of initiation, at which time the star is said to flash forth on the mental plane above the head of the initiate. It's a symbol that stands between us and a greater reality that is beyond it, but which it veils and hides. So while the star of initiation can be viewed as an inlet for spiritual energy, as with other symbols, it can also be a protective agency. It safeguards us from the impact of too much energy rushing into the vehicles. To understand this, we consider a loose analogy of the locks in a canal. Symbols are like lock gates that allow water to flow from a higher level until the water in the lock reaches the same level, same height, and the gates then open, allowing safe progress. Similarly, in the collective body of initiates, the centers through which the evoked energies pass are like lock gates, steadily letting light into the planet until such time that the kingdom of God can open and be fully revealed on earth. Humanity now stands at a stage where this process can be accelerated. And because so many people in the world are on the path, group initiation with its resulting radiatory life is now possible for the first time in human history. Working as a group, more rapid progress can be made and greater potencies can be withstood. The use of mantrams is one effective way of invoking and distributing energy, with their simple words becoming a formula for cleansing the aura of impurities. And used by a group, a mantram carries us away from self-centeredness and towards group identity. The aura then clears of the myriad swirling thought forms that have accumulated around us, and the pure light of the monadic soul and personality rays shine forth. And this is described in the following ancient commentary. When the star with 5 points shines with clarity and no forms are seen within its points, the way is clear. When within the aura of the pilgrim the many forms die out and colors 3 are seen, then the road is freed from that which might obstruct. When thoughts call not to forms, and when no shadows are reflected, the thread provides a way direct from the circle to the center. The thread referred to here is, of course, the path, the bridge of lighted mental substance we're each building through meditation and creative thinking, and which carries us into the heart of the ashram and group consciousness. It is human destiny to become a radiant star, and through group endeavor to form part of a constellation of forces transmitting certain influences just as surely as do the constellations of the night sky. The power of this five-pointed star, symbolic of the Christ, was experienced by Leadbeater while he was doing some occult research into a Hindu mantram found in the Krishna Upanishads. He discovered that as one meditates upon this mantram with intent, each syllable makes a line and forms part of a five-pointed star. And as the mantram is repeated, these stars pile up behind one another to form a tube, making a channel for spiritual force coming from Sri Krishna, who is the same great spiritual being as the Christ. And the first part of the mantram, the seed of attraction, draws the attention of the origin of the force, and a downward door or valve opens. Then through the body of the mantram, the force pours into the form. With the sounding of the final word of power, the force is sent out to do its work. The use of this star or pentagram in connection with the mantram is associated with the seventh ray of ceremonial magic and ritual, and all spiritual practices culminate in a distribution phase, where the energies that have been evoked are sent out in service to the world. The energy of all the rays of life have to be expressed through the medium of the seventh ray, for the highest aspect of divine light to penetrate the physical plane. And these energies seeking entrance into the world have to be organized and related through a transitory point of synthesis, which blends the seven energies together into one great energetic light. So by unitedly working at the evocation of the will, we can participate in the distribution of its fiery livingness into the world. And as we work in this way, whatever our individual abilities, we can be assured that through our group intention, we are helping to fulfill one of the greatest and invocatory pleas known to the Western world. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven, or, as more recently expressed, let light and love and power restore the plan on earth.